Yeah, I was small. I mean, that's something, one thing, that my grandparents would tell us, this is something that you have to know and never forget. I must have been 4 or 5 years old, and didn't get into detail till I got older. But that's something that Armenians always want their children, like I told my kids when they were little. It's something that has to be told. My mom's last name was Choolokian and my dad was Choolokian. My dad was from New York City and my mom was from Niagara Falls, New York. My mom's side, my grandparents, this is my grandfather Vahan Choolokian and my grandmother Philan Choolokian. My grandmother's family had a grocery store in Armenia, and when the genocide was happening, the Turks took over the store and they knocked at the door, and this awful story was they handed my great-grandmother a little box, and here was her husband cut up. And they took over the store, they took over the kids, the wife, my great-grandmother, and they were told to be slaves and cook for the Turkish people. My grandmother they fled through France and made their way over to Niagara Falls, New York. First, to start with, my grandparents would always tell us what happened to them. Then over the years, my mom added to it. My dad, he was an orphan, he didn't know a lot, but what he knew, he told us. And just talking to other little relatives here and there. And the sad part is, I wish I learned more because now my relatives are deceased, so you really didn't hear the whole story. So I tried to pass it on to my son Gage and my daughter Hope, because the Armenian heritage, they wanted us to die back then. And years later, we're still thriving. The Armenian as people love their families. The history's strong. The Armenian people, we're a different kind of people.
I think it was just a combination of over time, whenever you're at the dinner table, obviously always stories come up, and it's just kind of a part of who we are, the stories that have been passed down for generations. When I was younger, stories were obviously brought up, when it's about, their families and how they got here. And, our family's been here in Niagara Falls for over 100 years. I think we had to be one of the first waves of Armenians to come to Niagara Falls, and the fact that we're still here and still thriving, and both me and my dad are working for the city, I think that just really is something that's always hit home for me.
Niagara Falls is important to my parents and it's important to me, and now it's important to my kids. I work for the City of Niagara Falls. It's now the Niagara Falls Water Board. And we were talking about today, like my son just became a fireman, unbelievable. But my dad worked for the city a little bit before he went to factories, and my grandfather retired the sanitation department. So you have 4 generations that work for the City of Niagara Falls. One thing with being a councilman, I was very proud to be Armenian. So we used to recognize the Armenian genocide every year. So every year at the genocide, they have it at the Main and Pine, the Armenian Stone over there. So I spoke every year when I was a councilman. There's always got to be time for family, for stories, to preserve our history. So whenever that little moment that you had, a little break, you continue on with the story. So I guess the important part is to tell these younger generations, don't give up on your families, don't give up on your stories, get them out there, take a step back. That one thing that you had to do can wait a little bit. Take 10 minutes and preserve your family heritage. And that's in every nationality. It's important.
It's obviously something you're always going to be able to pass down to your future family. That's something that's never should be forgotten, because it's your past, and it kind of, like I said, it's really about who you are and who your family is.
Like I said, the more you talk about it, you want to cry. It's not, I don't know if it's a cry of being sad or a cry that we're still here. You feel it in your soul. When you learn about when you're younger, you get older, I feel it inside. Like it's something that is different, what happened to our heritage, what happened to the Armenians. So, the older you get, the more emotion you have for it. And I'm more passionate now, and I see when my grandparents and my parents, they'd always talk about it. Because I guess in yourself, you don't want nobody to forget. Not that our family's going to forget, but life is busy nowadays, and the more years go by, life gets crazy. I always tell them, you got to take a step back when life gets fast and just remember what happened.